The first thing she understood was that he meant to finish it. On January 31st, 2004, Teri Jendusa-Nicolai went to her ex-husband David Larson's home in Racine County, Wisconsin, to pick up their two young daughters. They had been divorced for 3 years after what court records described as an abusive marriage, and she had recently taken him to court over unpaid child support. Inside that house, whatever ordinary shape the day still had, collapsed almost immediately. Larson lured her in and attacked her with a baseball bat. He strangled her. He tried to smother her. When she did not die, he bound her head, wrists, and ankles with duct tape, forced her into a garbage can packed with snow, and loaded the can into the back of his pickup truck. That attack did not come out of nowhere. Years later, Jendusa-Nicolai spoke publicly about a marriage built on control, fear, and explosive rage. She described a man who screamed over small details of daily life and made ordinary mistakes feel dangerous. She had left because she feared what he might eventually do to her and to their children. On the day their divorce became final, she later recalled, he told her she would regret it. By January 2004, she had remarried and was pregnant again. She went to that house because custody exchanges still had to happen, even after violent marriages end. Once Larson sealed her inside the can, the attack changed from open violence to methodical killing. Court records say the can was filled with snow. After he drove her to Illinois, he left her in an unheated rented storage locker with boxes wedged around the can to keep her from climbing out. He was not panicking. He was trying to make sure there was no escape even if she survived the beating. The whole crime moved in stages. First the bat, then the tape, then the drive, then the freezing dark of the locker. But Teri Jendusa-Nicolai was not dead, and during the drive she began doing the only thing left to her. She worked. She managed to free her hands enough to use her cell phone. She called 911 and gave Larson's home address. She made more calls later, including another 911 call around 2 in the afternoon. At one point, she pushed a hand outside the garbage can, trying to get the attention of passing motorists. Larson saw it, hit her again, and took the phone away. Even inside that container, after the beating and while bound in freezing conditions, she was still forcing information into the outside world. She could not tell police exactly where he was taking her, but she could tell them she was alive, bound, and in the back of his truck. That was enough to turn the crime from disappearance into a race. Law enforcement broke into Larson's home around 11 that morning, trying to find her, but she was already gone. Later, when the phone calls revealed that their daughters were also missing, officers returned and searched more extensively while trying to piece together where Larson had gone. They found blood in the front hall, an overturned chair, a blood-stained bucket, sweatpants wrapped with duct tape at the ankles, and blood-stained gloves and socks. Larson reported for work around 6 that evening and claimed he knew nothing about Jendusa-Nicolai's disappearance. Police recovered the two girls later that night, alive, but they still had no location for their mother. She was out there somewhere in winter, injured, bound, and shut inside a container, while every passing hour worked in Larson's favor. For Teri, time inside the locker passed differently. Years later, she said she fought sleep because she believed that if she let herself drift off, she would die. The cold was not a distant threat. It was working into her body hour by hour. She had already been beaten around the head, and now the air itself was trying to finish what Larson had started. There was no room to stand, and no way to know whether anyone was near. She was pregnant. Her daughters were somewhere else. So she stayed conscious as long as she could and fixed her mind on seeing her children again. The break in the case came the next morning. Police searching Larson's wallet found 2 business cards for a storage facility in Illinois. They called. An employee checked Larson's unit and heard moaning from inside. Local police responded immediately and opened the locker. Jendusa-Nicolai was still inside the garbage can. Doctors later said she was about an hour from death. Her body temperature had fallen to 84 degrees. Renal failure had begun. Frostbite had spread over her body. Later descriptions of her condition said her eyes were swollen shut and her feet were so badly damaged that amputation became unavoidable. She had survived the beating, the drive, the confinement, and the storage locker, but survival had come at a terrible physical cost. The damage kept unfolding after the rescue. While still hospitalized, she miscarried 2 days later. All of her toes had to be amputated because of frostbite. Her hearing was damaged by the blows to her head. Larson was prosecuted in both state and federal court. In federal court, he was later convicted of kidnapping and interstate domestic violence and sentenced to life in prison, a sentence upheld on appeal. That legal ending mattered, but it was not the end of Teri Jendusa-Nicolai's story. She later chose to speak publicly about domestic violence and about the part outsiders often fail to understand. Leaving is often the most dangerous moment. In interviews marking the 10th anniversary of her survival, she said she wanted to be a voice for other victims and for the families and friends who do not know how to help. She worked with officials in Wisconsin on victim resources, notification systems, and legal protections. The woman Larson had sealed in a freezing locker became a public witness against the kind of violence that had nearly killed her. What made her case endure was not only the cruelty of the crime, it was the way she survived it. She did not survive because someone happened to stumble across her by luck alone. She survived because, after a savage beating, she kept thinking clearly enough to make calls from inside a garbage can in the back of a moving truck. She survived because she fought sleep in sub-freezing conditions for long enough that a storage employee could hear her the next morning. She survived because, even while trapped in a method built to erase her, she kept leaving signals that she was still there. In this case, those signals were the difference between murder and survival. The facts remain severe without embellishment. On January 31, 2004, Teri Jendusa-Nicolai went to pick up her children from her ex-husband's home. He beat her with a baseball bat, strangled and smothered her, taped her limbs and head, stuffed her into a snow-filled garbage can, drove her from Wisconsin to Illinois, and left her in an unheated storage locker to freeze to death. She was found the next day, about an hour from dying. She lost her pregnancy. She lost all her toes. She lived. Later, she put words to a truth many victims know intimately. Surviving the attack is not the same as being finished with it. In her case, survival was enough to deny him what he had wanted most. He had tried to reduce her to silence and cold. Instead, she endured, and then she spoke. Thank you for listening to Horrifying Survival Stories. Subscribe for more stories of those who faced the impossible and lived.